Hello everyone and welcome back to my Warhammer 40k guides. I am Brady and today I would like to discuss the new changes to the ITC missions pack. These changes were announced last Friday I believe, but I wasn't able to start making this video until Sunday because I had a local tournament to attend on Saturday, and when I discovered the changes on Friday night I was just getting ready for bed. So with that said, let's get into discussing the new changes. Before we get into that main topic though, this video was sponsored by themagnetbaron.com. They sell hobby magnets of all shapes and sizes, they sell magnetized model trays, magnetized flight stands, and even offer fully built magnetized models, all for a great price. So if you're looking to pick up any magnets for your hobbying needs, then check out themagnetbaron.com. The link is in the description. So with that said, let's get into the secondary mission changes. So as requested, we made many of the secondaries non-stacking to avoid some of the units bleeding too many points and making them unappealing to play. So for example, you used to have stuff happen like if you brought Knight Commander Pask or whatever his name is. He would give away a point for Headhunter if you killed him because he's a character. He could give away 3 points for Kingslayer, so then you would get 4 points off of that. And then he would also give away a point for Big Game Hunter. So that killing that one model would give you 5 points, and possibly a 6th, because then you kill the model for your turn, so that's at least 1 point. And then also, that might lead to you killing more than your opponent, which could lead to a 7th point. So that one model could possibly lead to a 7-point swing, which is not what you want in a game. You don't want one model giving away that many points. So this change to make secondaries non-stacking was a good change. Although I hope that it's not every secondary that's not non-stacking, because then that would mean that you can't stack stuff like behind enemy lines and what's that other one? Recon. So I hope that those are still stackable, but other than that, I agree that like Headhunter should not be stackable with Big Game Hunter and stuff like that, because killing one unit and getting like 6 points from it, that's just too much, and it's what was stopping Pask from seeing any play at all in ITC. And the people that were using them quickly realized that they shouldn't use them, or they really hated the ITC format because they thought it was imbalanced towards the character that they really liked. We have Headhunter, 1 point for each character that is destroyed. No change, we all like that mission. And I agree, because every army usually has to bring at least 4 characters, because you want to bring at least 1 battalion, which is 2 minimum characters. Then even if you only bring 1 other detachment, which is like a spearhead or something, you have to bring a character minimum for that. So that brings at least 3 characters, which is fine. You're not going to max out every secondary always. So having a secondary that gets pretty close to being maxed out is still good enough. You can get at least 3 points for it. So that I like that mission. I think it's fine. Kingslayer. Choose an enemy model that is a character. Earn 1 point for every 2 wounds of damage it loses. I can't speak. In the instance where a character may regenerate wounds or resurrect, during the course of the game, total wounds it loses over the course of the game are counted towards this mission. That means if you do damage, even if they heal that damage, you still get the points for doing that damage, which is great. If this model selected has the character or vehicle or monster keyword, or if the model selected has the character and vehicle or monster keyword, earn 1 point for every 4 wounds it loses instead of 1 for every 2. This is good against stuff like Magnus, because you don't want to just do 8 wounds to Magnus and suddenly have 4 points. So this makes sense, but this I'm pretty sure is how it's always been. Although at one point, I'm pretty sure it was 1 point for every 3 wounds, but now I guess it's 4, which makes it a little harder, but yeah, that's fine. Again, no change. Well, no change since they changed it from 3 to 4. But yeah, moving on. Marked for Death. This is a new one. Choose 4 of your opponent's units with a power level of 7+. Earn 1 point for each of these units destroyed. We added this one in to create a catch-all to cover gaps created by other missions. Did you only take 3 characters, 3 vehicles, etc. to avoid giving up all 4 points on any given secondary? Well, clever girl, as the saying goes, but you probably didn't avoid 4 units with power level 7+. Gotcha. This allows player to still have the option to go for these points, even if you've done your best to min-max your list, and conversely not to feel like you can take 3 of something when you really want to take 4+. This one remains slightly fluid, even if it turns out power level 7 isn't the sweet spot. We will adjust. Let us know if we missed anything. So my thoughts on this is, thinking about my own list that I make, and like my Dark Eldar list, I think in my Venom spam list, I only have 2 units that are power level 7+. So my Venom spam list still gets under this pretty well. because all the Venoms are only power level 4, the Cabalites are power level 2, the Archons are power level 4, and I know all this off the top of my head because I just played in a power level tournament on Saturday, which, by the way, power level sucks when you're making a tournament, but that's a topic for another day. But yeah, so most of the stuff that I use is under power level 7. With that said, though, if I did add Ravagers into my list, those are power level 7, but then again, those also fall under Big Game Hunter. So this, I don't really understand this change, like I do, but I don't, because most stuff that's going to be power level 7 plus is probably going to fall under Big Game Hunter as well. I kind of feel like this was like redundant, you know what I mean? Now it's just a second Big Game Hunter for the most part. I could be wrong, because I think Dreadnoughts, I don't know what power level Dreadnoughts are. They're probably level 7, but they only have 7 wounds, or 8 wounds, so they fall under the old Big Game Hunter. But with that said, let's move on. Big Game Hunter. 1 point for every model with the monster or vehicle keyword and 7+ wounds destroyed. So the only difference between this one now, Marked for Death, and Big Game Hunter is that this one can only be done on monsters and vehicles, while Marked for Death can be done on any units with 7 power level or more. Which I guess works against, like if you had a unit of 30 Bloodletters, that would fall under Marked for Death. But how many people are going to take 4 units of 30 Bloodletters? And then if... And then if your missions can't stack, so a lot of these Marked for Death units are going to fall under Big Game Hunter. So you're going to end up taking one or the other anyways. So I could be wrong on this, but again, I feel like these two are basically the exact same mission, and there was no need for this Marked for Death. I could be wrong. If I am wrong and you guys have noticed something that I haven't thought of, please let me know down in the comments, because this is my second time going over this list. I had the first time to go over it and get a couple of minor thoughts on it, and then over time, I've been thinking about it and trying to figure out how this is going to work, and of course how I can game the system, because that's what I love doing. I love taking the format and I love breaking it and finding lists that get under the radar, like my old Dark Eldar list that gave away like 0 points, which, by the way, if I still played that same list, even with these changes, it still gives away 0 points because my Venoms only have 6 wounds. So they get under this as well. So the Venom spam list still can avoid all these two and the Reaper and stuff. So with that said, let's move on. Titan Slayers. For every 8 wounds lost by the enemy units with a Titanic keyword, in total, throughout the course of the game, earn 1 point. There was no changes to this because it was popular secondary, and I think it's needed, especially with all the knights that are in the meta now. I know in the last video I said we should get rid of objectives that have to do with killing stuff, but after thinking about it and after reading a bunch of comments, I have changed my mind on that. I think the secondaries that have to do with killing stuff is fine. I just think they needed to be rebalanced, which is what they're trying to do. So now stuff like with Big Game Hunter, you can Talos no longer get under the radar. Dreadnoughts and Hellbrutes no longer get under the radar. Carnifexes no longer get under the radar. All of those are still fine. But the one thing that does get under this is Venoms. And so again, Venoms get past that, or get past Marked for Death, and they get past Big Game Hunter. So anyways, moving back on, Titan Slayer, no changes, popular, cool, awesome. The Reaper, now this is the one that everyone wanted changed. For every 20 models destroyed, earn 1 point. So this is great because it still counters hordes like they intended. I remember watching the Frontline Gaming podcast. It was one of the last 3 ones. So if you want to see it, I don't know exactly which one it is. But yeah, go sift through the last 3 Frontline Gaming podcasts to find Reese talking about this. But he said that the reason the Reaper even existed was to counter horde armies, which I find kind of funny because earn 1 point for a unit with 10 models killed means that, in a way, does that mean Reese thinks an army with 4 units of 10 models is a horde army? Because that's not the case. I don't think 40 infantry models counts as a horde army. But whatever, that's what it was originally intended as, although that is not what it accomplished. They really missed the mark on the old version of it. But for this new one, for every 20 models destroyed, earn 1 point. Which means, unless your opponent has at least 80 models in their list, then you're not going to be able to max this out. So this is literally only if you're going against, like, boys from orcs, or if you're going against cultist spam. Like, I'm personally making a list that has 240 cultists, and that's not even the full list. There's still tons of other stuff on top of that. So the Reaper would be great against that list that I'm coming up with. It'd be good against like Gene Stealer spam, Gaunt spam from Tyranids, anything that spams like 150 plus models, this will be good against. So it will counter horde armies now, but it won't counter basically every other army in the game, which is what it kind of did, because it countered Necrons, it countered cultists, it countered anybody who just wanted to bring 4 units of 10 guys, which is in no way a horde, at least in my opinion. So yeah, now it actually counters hordes, which is good. It's going to be a little bit more bookkeeping because it's 20 models destroyed, which doesn't mean it has to be 20 models from one unit, it's just 20 models. So there is going to be a little bit more bookkeeping, but that shouldn't be too hard. You can just count all the dead models at the end of the game. You can score this at the end of the game instead of doing it every turn. That's perfectly fine. So recon. Have one unit at least partially in each table quarter at the end of your turn. A unit may only count as being on one table quarter at the end at a time for the purposes of this rule, 1 point per turn. Again, no change. This was the second most popular secondary mission. And I like this. I like Recon. It was one of the missions that I always picked alongside this one, Behind Enemy Lines, which has now changed for the better. If at least one of your units is wholly within the enemy deployment zone, so it's only one unit now, in the enemy deployment zone at the start of your turn, earn 1 point. So this is almost like Defend Objective X, except now it's stand in opponent's deployment and don't die, which it's counterable now, which is nice. It doesn't feel like a second recon, which is nice, because that's literally like recon and Behind Enemy Lines were basically one and the same for the most part, which is kind of like how I feel Marked for Death and Big Game Hunter is now. They're basically the exact same thing. And then if you can't stack missions, there probably is a situation where this one will work better than this one, but for the most part, because maybe again people are spamming units that are power level 7 plus that aren't a monster or vehicle, but trying to think of lists that do that, I can't really think of it. Most lists that have units that are power level 7 or up are usually monsters or vehicles. And then, if anything, they have like one squad that might be power level 8 or more, like a Bloodletter bomb of 30 guys. But other than that, for the most part, everything above 7 power level is usually a monster or a keyword. So, kind of like those being the same now, Behind Enemy Lines and Recon used to be the same, but they're not anymore, which is great. And it makes Behind Enemy Lines harder to do, but it's still kind of easy to do if your whole army is going to be running at your opponent and getting in their deployment zone anyways. So I like the changes for Behind Enemy Lines. The Butcher's Bill. This is the new Death by 1,000 Cuts, which Death by 1,000 Cuts was kill 3 units in 1 turn. This you could do multiple times. So say if you killed 6 units in 1 turn, you would get 2 points. But anyways, they changed it. Destroy 2 plus enemy units during the turn to earn 1 point. So now even if you kill 4 units, you're only going to get 1 point because it says 2 plus units. So it's kind of nerfed, but at the same time it's kind of buffed, because now you only have to kill 2 units instead of 3 just to get 1 point. In some armies, this will be insanely easy. This is really good against my Venom spam, because as soon as you kill the Venom, the guys that got out are going to die to a Swift Breeze. So basically killing 1 Venom is going to get you 1 point from the Butcher's Bill. So this is good. My Venom spam list does not get under the radar with this, so I like that change, because I like the game to be balanced, and sure, it hurts my list, but as long as it hurts my list because it's balanced and it needed to be done, now my list doesn't get on under the radar completely perfectly. So yeah, again, I'm happy this change was made, because now they noticed that some units, like again Venom spam, they get under the radar, so now this will easily be able to deal with Venom spam, which is great. Should make a bunch of people happy. Ground Control. Earn 1 point for each objective held at the end of the last battle round. So basically, Eternal War. You get to get 1 point for every objective you stand on at the end of the game, which I think is great, because some armies want to play the objective game, and they're not necessarily there to kill their opponent, but they're there to have more board control than their opponent, and to just basically sit on more objectives than them, and that's how they win the game. So this is really going to help those armies, and I like this new addition. Old School, it's the exact same. You get First Strike, Slay the Warlord, Linebreaker, Last Strike. All of that is the exact same. I like it. I've always liked Old School. It's not mandatory like I wish it would have been, but then again, they didn't use any of my suggestions for the secondaries. But even then, looking back on my suggestions, they aren't that good. I'm not that good at balancing the game. I'm just good at playing it. But yeah, anyways, let's move on. The most popular secondary, Gangbusters. It's just deleted. They got rid of Gangbusters because literally nobody took it, which I even made a joke of in my last video. Nobody ever used Gangbusters, so yeah, I'm happy that was taken out as well, because there was no point to having it. And most stuff that falls under Gangbusters is probably going to fall under Marked for Death now, So we always have that to still get those big units that have multiple wounds and stuff like that. But yeah, anyways, that's going to be it for the changes for the ITC mission pack. My overall opinion on it is that I think all of the changes are good. I just don't necessarily understand having Big Game Hunter with Marked for Death, but then again, maybe I'm just not realizing something. Because most people who bring units that have power level 7+ are usually just bringing monsters or vehicles. There's not very many people bringing a unit of, let's say, like Chaos Space Marines. They're not bringing like 15 of them in a squad or something like that. Like, nobody does that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. We'll see, though. That's just my first impression. We will see after we play a couple of games, after a month or two goes through, and we see how many times people actually pick this secondary. Sorry for hitting my microphone. But yeah, overall, I think all the changes are great. I can't wait to play a game with these changes. The next battle report that I play is going to use all of these changes. So you guys can look forward to that. And yeah, that should be out sometime later this week, probably. So that's coming out alongside some faction focuses. Hopefully you guys are looking forward to that. And yeah, so anyways, that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more Warhammer 40k content. And if you're already subscribed but would like to help support the channel even further, you can do so on Patreon. I help all my patrons with list building and giving basic advice on coaching and how to play games and stuff like that. So if that sounds like something that's interesting to you, then come check me out on Patreon. The link is in the description. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Happy wargaming.